The audio up. Thank you for the sub. I appreciate it so much. And we're going to jump right into this. Yo.
Yo, what's up?
Yo, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Excited to have you on here, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
I would say it's been a while since we've seen each other, but we were playing the B-side CTF kind of together, not really during B-sides.
Yeah, I think before that we met up in DC.
Oh, that's right. You went to AppSec DC, so I run into you more often than I thought. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Wait, what's on? Oh, thank you for that logic pump. Cool. So let's get started. For those of you who don't know Kevin, I've known you for a while. I reached out to you about a few weeks ago or a week ago, and I asked you to come on the show because you have a very cool story about how you got started. But before we jump into that, tell me who you are, what do you do, and how long have you been in bug bounties?
So my name is Kevin. I go by the handle Rock, ROHK. I'm currently a application security engineer for Okta, and I got into bug bounties probably about like in October 2015. So about 4 years, almost 4 years around there.
So you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a while, but then still pretty low level, I think.
You did some cool stuff, man. Like your story that we get into is pretty cool, I think. And then the challenge you did for a while, about a year or two ago, when you were doing it was like a 30-day challenge.
No, it was actually 120 days, so 4 months. So
that was like 120 bugs in 120 days.
Yeah, it was 120 bugs in 120 days. I guess it was more of like 120 reported tickets or vulns. I didn't have 120 accepted, but then it was about 120 reported 120 days. So in that, it was pretty brutal, but I was able to accomplish it.
I bet. All right, let's jump into it, man. Tell me, how did you hear about bug bounties?
So the way I heard about bug bounties, it might sound like a broken record for a couple of people because I've told this story a bunch of times, but I think that's fine. So basically, back in college, I think it was my junior year or something, and I was just going to school for computer science, and then I just wanted to make a little bit of cash on the side. So I heard that Uber came to town, so you could become an Uber driver. So I talked to my parents. I was like, "Hey, can I become an Uber driver? Just make some a little bit of money here and there. I'll be able to go out with friends, grab a beer, or do something, right?"
Yeah, extra cash.
Yeah, extra cash. So after that, I registered for Uber. When I applied, you had to go through an onboarding process, add your vehicle, and then have it inspected or whatnot. So I added my vehicle, and then when I for some reason I don't know what happened, but then once you're at the vehicle page, once you click back and then you click forward again, it'll actually do some weird logic where it showed like about 1,000 Uber drivers' social security number, driver license, tax information, whatnot. So I reported that over to Uber at like a security at uber.com or something like that. I had no knowledge of bug bounties. I just knew it was a security issue. Maybe there was some wrong permission that was set on my account when I registered.
Right.
So went ahead and reported it, and probably within 30 minutes, I had somebody from the Uber security team reach out to me, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're right. We're on this. Give us a couple of hours or a couple of days, and then we'll get back to you." And then I kind of heard the term bug bounties or like bounties in general for any security vulnerability. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'll give it a try. So I reached out again. I said, hey, do you guys have a bug bounty program or anything of that sort? And they reached out again saying, hey, we have a private one on HackerOne. Go ahead and join on HackerOne, and we'll just resubmit what you found, and then we'll give you a bounty. I was like, oh, sure, okay. I talked to my friends. We're all fooling around. We're like, hey, how much do you think this is gonna get? And they're like, oh, it's probably, you're not gonna get anything for it. This week, whatever. You're only gonna get $300. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. It's something I found on accident. So probably I think a week later, I'm in like just sitting in the study room at my university, and then I get an email, and me and my friends, we just both look at the email and we see like a 3 in the beginning. I'm just like, oh damn it, it's $300. But after actually looking at it, it was a couple thousand, and um, that's how everything started. And then started looking into it a little bit more. Got invited to, I think, HackerOne initially before the first H1702. They had the Mandalay,
The small one.
Mandalay, yeah, the very small one
Yeah.
where everyone was there. So I met Sean Milas. I met a couple other people, and then Ted Kramer that was there. So he invited me to
Yeah.
the first H1702, which that's where I met a lot more people.
So that Uber bug that you talked about, that was your very first bug ever submitted.
Yeah.
So what was your background at the time? What were you doing in school?
So I was just going to school for computer science. I wasn't doing much with security at all, or nothing with security at all. Just going to school for computer science. Just wanted to get a degree and then hopefully graduate and then move on from there. But of course, bug bounties completely changed my life.
Did you end up graduating?
No.
Cool. What made you drop out?
Just the whole. I'm not very good with exams, right?
Same way, dude.
It just like I know the material, I know what to do with it, but then it's just once it comes to the exams, I guess it's kind of the whole um, was it just trying to recall that all that information and being in that stressful environment. And I just didn't want to do that anymore. I had about a year or a year and a half left. The thing that really pushed it was because I got a job offer with one of the bug bounty platforms where I was like, okay, sure, I'll give it a try. But I had to drop everything, move to Austin, Texas, and
Do you want to mention what
it's
that platform was? It's up to you.
it's Synack.
Cool. So let's talk about this. You did computer science, then you did bug bounties with Uber. That piqued your interest in hacking and security. You did it for a while. That landed you your first job in InfoSec working at Synack. And then
Right.
that's where it all took off. So you had a job offer without having to go to school. I get the fact of wanting to drop out of school because you don't need I don't think with security you need a degree. Half of the people that I work with, man, don't even have a degree.
Yeah, I think it was one of the life hacking events. I think it was either the second or third H1702. We were at Cosmo. We were just all eating together. I think you were there as well, and then I think Joel was there as well. We were just all
Yeah.
talking about how some of us, we don't even have a college degree. I do still, whenever I talk to people, I tell them, hey, you should get a college degree because you never know in the
Yeah,
future.
absolutely.
It's good to have, but for me, I don't think I would ever go back. Maybe that might change in the future, but I'm not exactly sure of it.
Do you have so you didn't again like with the school thing, I totally get it, man. Like if you have a passion for something, you have the basic knowledge and a job offer already, the degree could wait. If it doesn't work, I can go back and get a degree. What I'm
All right.
interested to understand is, did you get any outside of the school thing? Completely different. They don't teach you security as much. But how did you learn security? Do you have any certificates? Do you have a
Uh, no, I don't have any certificates. At school, there are a couple classes where they do teach you basic security. There was one of them, but then that was probably a year later after I got into bug bounties. So when I started getting interest in security, then I started taking classes that were related to security. Um, yeah.
so for somebody who, and correct me if I'm wrong because I don't want this to come out as me assuming about your background, but you mentioned that you came from college, where a traditional college where I assume they teach you Java and C, and um, you discover this thing on Uber. You learn about hacking. What was the next step? How did you learn about, I don't know, XSS? How did you learn about IDOR? How did you learn about all the different kind of bugs that are out there to make some money from it? Like what did you go from there?
Yeah. So after I found the 1st vulnerability on Uber, of course, the whole motivation is the money. So after getting the first bounty, I wanted to look more into it, look more into the different web security vulnerabilities that's out there. So I started going to HackerOne. HackerOne has their activity page, which helped me greatly. That's the part where I recommend to a lot of people that's getting into bug bounties. So it's like there's awesome reports out there. That's, oh hey, this is what XSS is, or this is how I did it. There's different ways that you could do it. You could do certain type of encoding to bypass the restrictions that's there, or maybe an IDOR or whatever vulnerability that's there. So I'm going on there, going on the activity page, and then I discovered that there's a community on Twitter. So when I went onto Twitter, I connected with a couple of people, just followed a bunch of well-known names that was on HackerOne. And then that's where, I'm not sure exactly how it happened, but that's where I also followed Pete Worsk. And then from there, we started talking a little bit, and that's how we actually met at H1702. So a lot of the things that I learned over the years, or in the beginning, was just from reading things from the HackerOne activity, going on YouTube, just Googling things, and then talking to the people in the community.
You mentioned that on Twitter you found a few big names. Do you mind giving a few shout outs on who you followed in the beginning? Just so people understand, like, who are some people that have been doing this for a while? Like, people that you recommend to follow, that they're putting content out that helped you at least. Peter Yaworski is absolutely number one that I would recommend. All his videos, his books.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who I followed. I'm pretty sure I followed Franz, Matthias.
Yep.
There was one person that was on Facebook.
PHMAD?
No, there's. I'm trying to look at it. Hold on. Either way, he was the top hacker
Neil?
on Uber. Uber at the day.
I know who you're talking about. Jack Finite.
Yeah, Jack. Yeah, Jack Whitten. Yeah. So I followed his blog a lot, and that's another part. Like looking at following people's blogs and seeing how they approach certain things. So I read his blog whenever he came out with something. Yeah, during I think London, I saw him at the HackerOne event, and I was too scared to actually go up to him and say hi. And that's when I came down with like this bad flu. But yeah, anyway.
That's cool though. I mean, it's the reason why I asked this is, it's important for people to understand. Like, when 4 or 5 years ago, people like yourself and myself, when we were doing bug bounties, there weren't a lot of resources outside of the peer-to-peer thing, right? Like, the Pentester Lab wasn't as big. The activity was the only source. There wasn't, no Hacker 101, no WebSec Academy. There wasn't a whole lot. It was either you learn from each other and you do it on your own, or you don't learn at all. Versus today, there's all these different sites, all these different paid subscriptions, all these activity blog posts, bug bounty tips, and all these different things that are happening. So kind of highlight.
Yeah, that's what I noticed as well. Is back in, like, I don't want to say back in the day because it was only like 4 or 5 years ago, but then back then it was
back in my days.
Yeah, there wasn't that much material that was out there besides like HackerOne or blogs, and now there's the bug bounty forum. There's a couple other Slack channels that's out there. There's the community is getting much bigger, and it's much easier to start communicating with each other. So yeah, comparing now from then, yeah, it's different. It's way different.
Let's talk about motivation. But by the way, how much do you hack nowadays since you have a full-time job? Do you do it just for fun? Do you do it at all?
From time to time, I'll just do it maybe a couple of times, like maybe once or twice a month, depending of how successful I am. If I'm able to find like 2 or 3, then that's good enough for me. But recently I haven't been doing much. There hasn't been that much motivation, unfortunately.
Okay, let's talk about coding. Do you regularly code?
Yeah. So right now I do a lot with Python. So that's enhanced with what I do at work and what I do on my own spare time.
Okay.
I'll just use Python a lot. I don't really use much of any other language besides of doing code reviews for Java and JavaScript, and then the other language that's currently that's around.
Okay. But what do you use? Well, what I was trying to get at is, um, when you're doing Python, do you think that is something that's required for bug bounties, or when you let's take it back. When you were hacking 4 years ago, did you still do a lot of coding? And was it a requirement for you to get started in bug bounties?
I think it's not really a requirement for you to know how to code because when I was going to school, I was learning C and C++. Um, is it a requirement to learn how to code? No, but does it help? It helps significantly because if you're looking at different different websites or different type of, let's say you're doing a source code review
Uh-huh.
for there's not much out there for bug bounty, but then if there is any, there's one for the DoD where you're able to review source code for one of their assets, and being able to know um, coding or any type of language specific to that, then it'll be easier to find different types of vulnerability that's in there instead of going there blind. So instead of just putting an XSS payload here or trying to do XSE here or trying to find an RCE, you're able to just look at the code and be able to find it on the spot. So I say it is pretty useful. It's not a requirement, but I would recommend knowing some kind of code, some kind of language.
How much coding did you know when you first got started? When your first year you were doing bug bounties, your first 2 years you were doing bug bounties. How efficient were you with Python and other languages?
So when I started, I didn't know anything about Python. The only languages I knew were C and C++, because those were the required
Right.
languages that you need to know for school. Because back then, while I was going to school, it was just pass the class, graduate, and then get out of there. But then after getting to bug bounties, having these skills were helpful. Being able to, let's say you want to automate something, being able to um, get something done, it's really helpful.
Let's talk about the triage aspect of things. I see the chat is asking about this a little bit, and we'll get to that topic specifically in a little bit. But working with the community directly, so I assume that working at Synack at some point had some sort of an impact on your career. I'm not saying that it helped you get better as a hacker, but it probably gave you an insight on how the industry works, right? Or what the community wants, how the community reacts, how much work goes in the background for a bug bounty program to run, that sort of thing. Do you mind speaking about that a little bit? Like, when you joined Synack, you know, what did you learn as about the community? Did it help you understand more about the community and how to approach bug bounty programs? Did it help in any way?
Yeah, it actually definitely helped. I'll talk about that and then go talk about it as a whole, kind of.
Okay.
But being at Synack and being a just an analyst, of being able to look at the reports, being able to triage them, you get a lot of insight of how other people approach things, and then of course, I guess I don't know if it's a like a taboo, I guess, something like that, of having like looking at how somebody else approached it and then using it for yourself or improving upon it. But you do get a lot of insight. You do gather a lot of information, but then over time, it does become really repetitive because of all you're going to see is XSS. All you're going to see is being able to do access control or
Right.
IDORs or RCE. But from that, you're still able to gather a lot of information. Once you gather that information, you could do whatever with it.
So, how did it help you with? You talked about how you learned from people's approach, right? It
Mhm.
helped you. Did it help you become more efficient? Did it help you become more knowledgeable? Um, how did it really help? Is what I'm trying to understand. Like, does it help you recognize things better? Did you ever have a moment when you went, "Oh my god, I never thought of looking at this problem this way"?
Yeah, it does help a lot in overall. And then when you're looking through different type of vulnerabilities, different type of reports that people submit, you'll always encounter that whole like, oh my gosh, it's just like, how did they do that, and what was it? I wonder what their thought process was.
Right.
So that's all I can get into.
What about like, so the reason why I asked this question from you is like, I personally think there is a lack of empathy when it comes down to dealing with triagers, bug bounty programs, bug bounty program managers, platforms. And I see the lack of empathy, whatever you want to call it, mostly coming from folks who have never worked a corporate job in their life, who have never worked in a team, they've never worked in an environment where you have to follow process and, follow, whatever has been written, the process that's given to you. Did that change for you when you left Synack? Did you approach programs and platforms and program managers differently now?
So yeah, going back to all of that. So because of, I guess I reached all three stages of, because I was a bug bounty hunter, and when I was a bug bounty hunter, I didn't really understand any of the process. Right? It's just like you submit a vuln to a program, and then you're just waiting. You don't know what. Maybe they have an SLA. Maybe they have a large pipeline for that specific team. So you submit something, and then back in the day, I would always ask for updates. It's like, hey, a month later, is there an update? Or even a couple of days later, I'll ask for an update. But then going on to Synack, being a security analyst and triaging reports, I just kind of got a small insight into that, because we're just reproducing the issue, validating it, and then paying the researcher. Right. But we don't have that connection with the company itself. We do have meetings at times, but we're not completely working with the company. Right. But then after leaving Synack and going on to Okta, or let's just say any other company, then I had a much bigger insight of what goes on in the background. It's not just you report a vulnerability and we're going to fix it right away. There's always an SLA for certain severity types, right. Or just there's a lot of things that happens in the background. So let's say you report an XSS, that's pretty bad in a sense. So we'll try and get that fixed as soon as possible. There's going to be always SLAs. We always have to communicate with the team, and the team will always have questions on like maybe what's the impact, how do we fix this, what's the best way to approach it. So there's always things that's happening in the back end that the researchers don't know. And then so now I can realize that, but then at the same time, I still ask for updates. Yeah.
So let's talk about now that you are at Okta, how does your background as someone who has been on the offensive side of being a hacker and also someone who's done triage, how does that help you with your day-to-day job at Okta? Actually, by the way, did bug bounties have a role in you getting your job?
I think bug bounties did have a major role in getting where I am today.
Okay. But how does your background as a hacker help you do that job? Are you triaging bugs? Are you escalating bugs, for example, for hackers, or is it easier to reproduce a bug because you also know hacking yourself?
So the way I don't do much triaging at Okta. Okay. The way my day-to-day task is basically just reviewing new functionality or changes or pull requests, new pull requests that's coming through. So I'll be doing a lot of code review. Okay. And with that, if there's a new functionality or a new feature or a new product that's coming out, then I'll go ahead and do basically a security view on it. So anything that I learned through the years of bug bounties or from different classes or anything that I learned online, I'll just apply it towards that feature. And of course, each company, they have different types of vulnerabilities they're more common with.
Right.
So once you're at a company, you'll understand, hey, maybe this company is more vulnerable to access controls or more vulnerable to some other vulnerability. So I'll look into those first. And then of course you can always narrow it down to, all right, this, if you really want to get into it, it's like, oh, this a developer report the most had the most XSS issues. So you'd be like, oh, well, this developer did a pull request. Let's see if he introduced another XSS or another type of vulnerability.
Interesting. That's really cool though. It's cool to see your growth, man. Like from going to bug bounties to Synack to getting a job at Okta and doing things beyond just bug bounty and using that knowledge for something better. That's very cool.
Yeah, this is something I talked to Pete and a couple other people a lot. It's kind of like reflecting of where we started and where we are now. Because me and Pete, we both started around 2015, and then we'll just sometimes talk about it. Like, man, a couple of years ago, just not even more than 5 years ago, we were not into security and we were just doing our own thing, and now we're here.
Yeah. Someone's asking this question. It's usually I ask it differently, but I like this question a lot because it kind of puts it in perspective of how much things have changed since you first started. What is one or multiple things that you've learned in the past 3 years that you wish you knew early on?
Um, I would say
Like
the
anything that
probably
you've sorry to interrupt you, but like anything that like you learned. It could be hacking, it could be life lessons. It doesn't have to be technical, but something that you wish it would have helped you if you knew early on.
so one of them is being more patient. Because there are things in a bug bounty perspective, research perspective, being more patient, because you never know what's going on in the back end. They could have a pipeline that's a year long, and they're trying the best they can. So I wish became more patient with that, because as you continue to ask for more updates, as you continue to hack on that program, you're making your reputation with them less and less, because now they understand, oh, hey, you guys, Rock is asking for another update. 3 days ago, we gave them an update saying that we're fixing the issue. Or as you continue to annoy them, because I had this experience before that I would just always continue to ask for updates, but then it got to the point where the head of security had to reach out to me. It's like, all right, look, this is how many vulnerabilities that we have in the back end. It literally showed me like a screenshot saying, hey, this is what we have. We can't, like, yours is a less of a priority. It was just like straight to the point. Another one would be not being lazy, because once we find a vulnerability, if we suspect to find a vulnerability, we'll use maybe like it's good and efficient, but then we'll use let's say SQL map to go through brute force and try and find an SQLI. But when you're using SQL map, you don't really understand how it works. How does the SQLI work?
Right.
Like, you don't really understand any of that. So I wish I wasn't as lazy as before, and just trying to research of how it all works. I guess there was another one, but I forgot it.
So you mean like instead of using tools to just find the bugs, understanding why the tools work the way they do?
Yeah.
Cool. That's a valid one. That's I could definitely relate to that kind of. That's how I got better. Is I would use scanners and then manually go back and see if I can figure it out on my own.
Right.
That's very good advice. Let's talk about Recon. When I reached out to you, you said, "Oh, the Recon thing's gonna be short. I don't have much to offer, but I want to prove you wrong." First of all, what does Recon mean to you, man? Like the process when someone says, "I do Recon," what do you think of?
So when someone says I do Recon is when you start off with the program, you want to kind of understand what that product is about. What is that product offering? And once you figure that out, you're able to see what you should be able to see what assets they have. So going ahead and do maybe a subdomain search, or doing any type of automated searches that you want to be able to do. And once you gather all that information, you're able to go to each asset, because that's going back to how I got into bug bounties when I went to the first HackerOne event. Was when I got there, I didn't know anything like how things ran or what to do. It was just a company that I've heard of for the first time. So while just sitting there, it's like it just went head first, and that doesn't really work that well. So when I sat down, I just took a breath and then looked into what the product offered. And then once you understand what the product is about, then you're able to kind of be more successful in finding vulnerabilities. So I think that's what Recon is. It's just looking at what they have to offer and what kind of assets they have, and just going off from there.
Okay, how do you do the recon? So what you just mentioned, the asset discovery, content discovery, looking for different things. Do you do that when you get a new target?
I don't really follow my own advice. Sometimes I'll do it, sometimes I won't, because the main platform that I hack on is Synack, and then they scope out what you should be able to hack on.
Okay.
So it's just let's say I'll just say something basic. It's like www.google.com, and that's the only thing you hack on. So you can't really do much of, I guess, recon of what more can you attack. But then I'll go ahead and just see what they have to offer, and then once I understand what they have to offer, then I'll just go ahead and try and throw things at it and see what I can find. And once you find one type of vulnerability, then that should be a kind of a clear indicator of this application is going to be vulnerable to more of that same vulnerability.
Okay, so let's talk about it. By the sounds of it, is that you hack more on main applications than going after subdomains, right? And you mentioned that you want to understand how the application works as a part of your recon. How do you do that? Like, how do you, let's say I give you Uber.com, for example. How did you do recon on Uber to find more bugs? Like, how would you use the site? Like, what things would you visit to see how app.uber.com works?
So for Uber.com, when you go to the site, you'll first see that. I'm not sure what it looks like now, but then back then you'll go ahead and look at it, and you'll see that you can have a customer who is the person who requests Uber ride, and then you have a driver that will be able to accept ride requests. So now you can see that there are two different types of applications. So you have the customer and you have the driver. So once you start looking into that, when you go into, I guess, when you, what is it? I'm trying to think. So when you go into the rider application, you'll automatically see that it's be rider.uber.com. So at that point, you already know that, hey, that's for the rider side, and there's also going to be a driver side, which is driver.uber.com. So you could kind of make those connections. Okay. So that's how I made the initial recon of what they have to offer, what kind of different applications there are, and then when you go more into it, then you'll be able to do. They have a web application and they have mobile, so they'll have another attack vector, which is the mobile API, and they have the web API.
So you're pretty much looking at the company at a super high level. What kind of different applications do they have? Different user permissions, different apps, sub apps, and you just go through it without actually doing any hacking.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you start looking for vulns based on what? Based on how the site operates? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's how the site operates, and then also looking at what the company is looking for. So sometimes on the company target page, they'll say, "Oh, these are the type of vulnerabilities that we're really looking for," and there's a reason why they're saying that. So it could be like we want to see if you're able to see other people's trip information. So there could be a possibility that was an issue before, and there's a way maybe you might be able to bypass it. So using a lot of information that's set by the customer, and then your own recon.
Cool. That's awesome. See, so you do some sort of recon. It's just a different approach.
Yeah.
The reason why I ask these questions is I don't want people to think like everyone's running these crazy tools, there's automated tools that pulls everything for them and gives them vulnerabilities. People do it manually. I do a lot of it manually. I do Recon for different reasons. I automate some stuff for larger targets, but doesn't mean that that's all you have to do to make money from doing bug bounties.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Always referring back to the first HackerOne event because that was completely new to me. When I got there, I just sat on the couch, and I think next to me was like Matthias, and other next to me was Franz and a couple other people. So it was just really overwhelming. And then when the event was about to start, you kind of look at the screens, and you see that they have burp up, they have a couple of other tools up, and they're just getting ready for the event. But to me, I just had just burp up. I think it was the pro version, just there, nothing else, getting ready. And at the end of the night, I think I was pretty successful because after just thinking about it, just collecting information, just trying to think mainly what the product is about, and then that's what really helped me.
Yeah, and didn't you got an award or something for that night, didn't you?
I'm not exactly sure. I think
you placed really high.
Yeah, I like the first at like midnight ish or something like that. I think I was first.
Hi.
And then I think Nafi came in and took over.
Yeah, the second night though. Yeah, because the second night was his target too. That's why. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I was trying to get at was you said you look around and you see all these different people having different tools on, but you only had burp and you had a very successful night.
Yeah, which was really surprising to me. But then at the same time, it's just it was just a lot of luck that played into it.
Or it was the fact that you know the target, dude. You were hacking on target you knew. Don't underestimate yourself like that, man. I think you're being a little too humble, man. Like I think you knew what you were doing, and I get that you were sitting next to a lot of good hackers, but at the end of the day, your approach worked.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember if I think about it, at the first event we were in that small suite, right? When we were hacking, I think that was a night that you did really good on, and I think your approach worked, even though it's not something super sophisticated or something super scripted and like a bunch of terminals open. Your approach of just having Burp Suite open and going through all the single applications one by one worked.
Yeah, and then because of how the application was, it's there's different levels of access. So you'll have just it was like a employee, you have HR, you have it was an HR application. Yeah. So you have an admin, HR, and whatnot. So being able to understand, go to their website and understand what they offer, it's just really helpful.
That's so cool though, man. I wish I had that video of you and Smeagol's from last year going head to head.
Which one was it? The GIF that we were hugging,
or you guys were like chest bumping and like trying to get out of each other's way.
Yeah, I think I still have that somewhere, but yeah.
Speaking of live hacking events, man, do you collaborate with anybody regularly at these events?
Back then, I would always collaborate with. I continue to talk to them over the years. Is Zishano, Andy Gills, so Zephyrfish, and Pete Yorsk, and then also Follow the Scripter. Awesome. So I'll just sometimes work with them. I'll ask them questions, but because of how I haven't been doing bug bounties that much, it's just I guess it hasn't been there lately. Mm-hmm. But then during the live hacking days, whenever Pete Worski is there or anyone else, I'll just try and meet up with them, and we'll just like sit down and try to get at it. And then while we're hacking together, I think we're a little more successful because we're able to motivate each other, and then to be able to continuously go at it. But if you're working by yourself, for me, if you're working by yourself, then you kind of get distracted. You just do your own thing, and because the live hacking events are they're huge. A lot of things are going on. You're meeting old friends. You're meeting new people. So you're constantly just doing something else besides hacking. But when you're working with people, they'll keep you in check.
What is do you think collaboration is important when it comes down to hacking, especially bug bounties?
Let's say again.
Is collaboration important when it comes down to bug bounties and hacking, or even learning?
Yeah, collaboration is it's important because of how everyone has a different mindset.
Hmm.
So when you're attacking an asset or a product, you try to do everything that you have thought of.
Okay.
But when someone else comes into it, then they'll be able to bring a new idea of like a fresh, just something fresh, and maybe they'll say, "Hey, what about we try to do this? This is something that we haven't done before. You haven't done before, or maybe here's something that I thought of while I was sleeping or something like that." So collaborating is, I would say, it's very useful,
Okay.
and that because that also applies to because I saw different blogs from you and a couple other researchers of you guys are just um, collaborating and finding different vulnerabilities and whatnot.
Okay. Are there any hackers you collaborate with? Like,
Other hackers, at the moment, no,
okay.
unfortunately.
Are there any hackers you want to collaborate with, but you haven't yet? Do you have a list of hackers you go, oh, I want to collaborate with this hacker at one point?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. Of course, I never got the chance of to there's the names don't really pop into my head right now, but then there were a couple of them that I wanted to collaborate with, but I just didn't have, I guess, the guts to reach out. Um, I did talk to Doggy G. I do talk to Doggy G a couple of times
Okay.
while we're hacking on some Synack targets. We'll go ahead and kind of collaborate there, but besides that, not much.
Cool. Do you do any CTFs at all on a regular basis?
Oh, not on a regular basis. So the last one that I saw you at was at the CTF for B-side San Francisco.
Yeah.
So I did CTF there. It's something that it was the first CTF that I did, and it was pretty new and something that was pretty exciting. Um, but usually when it comes to CTFs, when I think about it, it's just I just want to do web application because that's what I know. So I don't really go towards anything else.
Do you think CTFs help for people that are in bug bounties? For learning new concepts or getting better at identifying patterns and exploiting things?
Yeah, because with CTFs, I would say some or most CTFs will be kind of like a real life situation. It's just based off of what was at B sides. Um, so it would help because it helps you think outside of the box. You're going to be able to think, hey, what are possible ways I could do this? How can I go about it? And then seeing if it works. Um, and also at the same time, you're able to collaborate with people. I remember I talked to you a couple times because I was trying to get the payload to work, but then it
Mhm.
was just like one small stupid thing that wasn't working. And then
So, what do you do today? There's new research coming out, new techniques. There are things that you still may not know, including myself. How do you learn those things today? Um, Someone releases a new technique. It's very popular nowadays, and you don't know how to do it. How do you learn it?
so if somebody comes out with it, let's say it's like a new blog post, and I guess like the obvious thing is like you just want to research into it. So you'll go ahead and see how they went about it, see what kind of tools they used. I'll go ahead and try and just look more into it. I don't know if that really answers the question.
Let me ask it a different way.
Yeah.
Let's say you're good with XSS, IDOR, and CSRF. You don't know SSRF. It's a new. It doesn't have to be new research, but you're not good at SSRF, for example. How do you get better? How do you learn what SSRF is? Where do you go? How does that look? How do you practice to become better at these bugs? Besides doing, if you're not finding bugs, are there? Is it a reading thing? Is it setting up your own lab? Is it going and doing CTFs? Or like, how does that work if you make it your mission to learn something new? How do you do it?
Yeah, it's everything that you mentioned, right? It's a lot of reading. That's what I like to do. It's a lot of reading and a lot of hands-on.
Okay.
So if there's any materials that's out there, it's like, hey, these are the types of SSRF bypasses you could do, or this is the type of SSRF um, methods that you can use, then I'll read into that and see how companies are being able to in the code level, how are they restricting that, I guess. Are they using a blacklist? Are they using a whitelist? Why is it so? How are they patching it? So once you get an understanding of that, then I'll go ahead and do some CTFs. When I'm looking at the CTFs, I'll try to just look for specific CTFs or create use a lab that's out there to be able to use the bypasses, or be able to use just to better understand how those work.
Okay. I'm trying to look at my notes. The only thing that I haven't asked you, and I was keeping it for last on purpose, is talking about imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever deal with imposter syndrome?
To be honest, yeah, I go through imposter syndrome pretty often, I think, even sometimes now, during during work, or even like when I'm talking to other people or doing bug bounties or doing anything. I think for me, I go through imposter syndrome because it's kind of whenever somebody talks about a certain subject, then I'll kind of and if I don't know about it, then it kind of puts me into situations like, oh, because I don't know that, then I don't know security. Even though you know security in a sense, and then you are your profession is in security. It's always that time when someone comes up with something that's like, hey, what is this and this and this and this and this, and you're kind of just sitting there and you're like, oh, I have no idea. I'll look into it and try and get you an answer, but I don't know. And then like a little bit later, I'll kind of like think about it to myself. It's like, man, if I don't know this, but other people, let's say in the team aspect, like other people know on the team, then it kind of puts you in that into that mood. But then after you constantly think about it, right? It's like, oh well, because I don't know it. But then like for them, let's say they have way more experience. That's on the thing. Like they have 8 years or 15 years or 20 years, and even though I don't know, I understand they have 15 years, but still, it's like I feel like it's something that I should have known, but at the same time, I didn't.
Does that play a role in wanting to get better at what you do and learning more?
Oh yeah, it definitely does, because of course it always depends on the person. Some people are gonna be like, oh well, I don't know it, whatever. It's just I'll move on from it. But then depending on who the person is, for me, if I don't know it, I want to learn more about it, because if somebody asks me that question again, I want to be able to give them the answer. Um, um, I don't want to get to an example, but yeah, it's just when someone asks me about it, I want to be able to provide it to them.
Absolutely. And then one last thing, we talked about your 120-day challenge. How did that work? Well, how did you come up with the 120 in 120 days? What was the concept? Give us a rundown of why did you do it? How did it go? How'd you stay motivated?
So one of it was I'm not sure why I started it. I just remember I read an article by Shubs. I think he did 30 days. He did some kind of challenge that I wanted to also imitate, and then something that I wanted to challenge myself in. And then I thought about how many vulnerabilities and how many days will be a challenge for me. I thought about doing maybe 30 vulnerabilities in 30 days, but then it's a challenge. It's hard to do that, but then at the same time, I wanted to go a little bit further. So I just thought about 120 days and 120 vulns in 120 days. So I just went about doing that, and then the whole process of that, it was pretty. In the beginning, it was okay, but then once you get 30 days or 45 days into it, it gets kind of stressful, because once you get behind, because that's one vuln per day. But then let's say you don't find a vuln for that one day, then you're kind of automatically shot down. You're like, oh, I didn't find a vuln for that one day. I need to make up for it tomorrow. And then tomorrow, you don't find something else again. So you're going to be 2 vulns behind. And then same thing for the other day. So it's constantly trying to find more vulns. And then the whole thing that it has on mentality is when you're doing it, because for me, I had a full-time job while we're working on that. So it's a 9 to 5 job. And then afterwards, about getting home at 6 o'clock, once it's let's say 7 or 8, you're starting that challenge, and that you end at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. You wake up again at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then continuously trying to go at it. So I think on Twitter I posted what my schedule was. It was like waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, getting to work at 9, leaving work at 5, like 4 or 5, getting to home at 6 or 7, and then keep going on to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then repeat.
How did you deal with burnouts when you were doing that? I assume you were, getting burnt out here and there. And how did you deal with it? Do you still deal with burnouts at all?
Yeah. So regarding burnouts, because I knew I had other people that were telling me, hey, you're gonna have to give yourself some time, a break, or else you're just gonna go mad. So I decided before I started the challenge, I set specific weeks, the entire week where I don't hack at all, which was pretty difficult because when you don't hack for an entire week, you're already 7 vulns behind. But I just set I think out of the 15, 17, 18 weeks or something, that I set 4 of them. Where it's just a complete break. I don't do anything. I just hang out with friends. I go travel. I do something, and then I'll go back at it. There were a couple times where it was during the middle of the week where I just got completely burned out. So I had a website that had all the statistics, and I just said, I'm taking a break. I'm not going to do anything. But then that adds more stress onto it because you have to make up for that time.
What are some things you learned coming out of the 120 days, the 120 bugs?
The thing that I learned the most is like you have to kind of change the way you approach a target. You can't just go full ham on it. You can't just because what I usually do, I just go head first, or you really have to take the time of, once you get to the target, just think about what offers and then go for it. Yeah, because like if you have to find kind of like a balance, right? It's just if you just go head first, you're just be wasting time of trying to find a vulnerability. But another end, it's like if you spend too much time on recon, then you're wasting time. But I tried to be in the less part of just like understanding what the product offered, and then just trying to find vulnerabilities from there. Maybe if you did more recon, then you would find more vulnerabilities. I don't know, because I didn't do that part.
Okay, fair enough. Anything before I jump into the second part of the interview? Anything you personally want to talk about, or any advice? Anything you want to share before we kind of get to the second part and wrap it up?
I think what I said before of like the 3 things that I wish I learned was just being more patient with the program that you're hacking on. So whether it be on HackerOne, Bugcrowd, or Synack, just give them time, because you never know what's going on in the back. They could be getting hammered and you don't even know about it until they actually show you the statistics, and then you never want to get that email from the head of security. It's just like, look, this is what we have. We have 300 vulns in the queue. Just stop asking for updates. And another one is like being able to understand how certain vulnerabilities work and why it's happening, instead of just using some automated tool and going about it. Of course, like maybe you're going to be that type of person that wants to use an automated tool to find XSS or SQL injection. That's great because you'll be able to get a good payout, but that won't help you in the long term of trying to get maybe if you want to get a job in the field, or if you want to have action as a profession. And that goes in hand with like, don't be lazy. If you there will be times where you can be lazy, where you can create your own automated tool, and that's when you'll understand how it works because you're building it. So yeah.
That's really good advice, though. I mean, I just want people to understand, like, remember, the people that are doing your triage are as human as you are. They have different things going on in their lives, and having a little empathy goes a long way. So I appreciate you sharing that. But let's just jump into the last part of this. Second part is really fun. I asked you some basic questions to get to know you about your bug bounty, like how you've done it in the past, and then I give you the second part is I give you a word. You tell me the first thing that comes into your mind. One sentence, one word, whatever you want. So let's start. So, what is the first bug bounty program you ever hacked on?
Uber.
What was the first vuln you've ever found?
I guess I would classify it as information disclosure, sensitive information disclosure.
What was your first bounty you received? You can also give me a range if you're not comfortable with sharing the bounty amount.
The exact amount would be $3,250.
Do you remember what you did with your first bounty?
The first bounty, I just stored it in savings.
Nice, smart. Most people don't
Yeah.
save up; they go and splurge on something. What's the best purchase you have done with your bug bounties?
Oh God,
It's a hard one.
it is a hard one because now it's like after you start doing more bug bounties and you start getting more money and whatnot, and you just start storing it. I think the best one would be it's not a purchase, but it's providing money for my parents.
Very cool.
Whenever they need money, you just for me, I'm the type of person that's just like if I'm giving like a family member money, I'm completely fine with it. Like if they need $20,000 for whatever reason to pay off a loan or anything, I will give them $20,000. But then if it's something to use for me, I'm more hesitant on it. So, but now like my parents have told me, it's just like this is what you do. You should splurge for yourself. So I took their advice, and then I just buy things for myself. I think the biggest purchase so far, it's I'm in the process of buying a house.
It's very cool. Congrats, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Very cool. What's your favorite bug type?
Favorite bug type would be I'm actually trying to differentiate between. Okay, so favorite bug type would be RCE, but then the most favorite ones that I try to look for are XSS because there's so many out there. A web application will always be vulnerable to an XSS in one way or another.
Did you have a mentor, any hackers you want to give a shout out to for helping you early on with your hacking?
One person that I talked about a lot during this interview is Pete Jaworski. Because of we would always in the early days we would always communicate with each other of what we're looking at, how we're finding it, and whatnot. And back then, I told him that whatever, I'm just gonna ruin my signal on HackerOne, and I'm just gonna report anything and everything. And that was the worst decision because then I had like a negative something signal, and then when HackerOne came out with the signal requirement, it was like, well, you can't report to this program anymore. And then Pete's like, well, I told you so. You shouldn't have done that. So Pete's been the person that I've been in touch with the most, and basically if I had any life stuff, then I would always talk to him about it.
Very cool. That's awesome, man. Pete's definitely has played a very big role in the community.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite tools?
Favorite tools, just Burp. Burp is a tool of all trades, I guess. That you could have extensions. I don't really use extensions or the plugins that they have, but I just use Burp for everything.
Any fun hobbies outside of things that are related to security and hacking?
Oh, and related to security and hacking?
No, not related to security.
Oh, not related to. Okay. Some of the hobbies I do is I like to just play games. As you can see in the background over there, I have like gaming setup. I
What do
like
you
to
play?
play a lot. Right now, I'm playing Escape from Tarkov.
Of course.
It's a game where it's like you'll go in a couple of rounds, and then if you die, then you're like, all right, well, I'm done.
Yeah.
I recently got into again back into shooting.
Okay.
So getting into guns a lot for just practicing.
Yeah.
And then I like to drive a lot, just going on like a nice scenic route, get to a nice area, and you're able to kind of like reflect on life. You're just like sitting there, you're just thinking about how you got to where you are, who helped you, and then um, just
Yeah.
be very zen about it.
Yeah. This is the second part. So I'll give you a word, and then you tell me the first thing that pops up in your mind.
Okay.
Let's start with Synack.
Wait, hold on. So any word that pops into my mind.
Word, thought, something that comes into your mind, or something that it represents.
Okay, so for Synack, private.
What about Synack Red Team?
Man, this is hard. I'm trying to think of a word, just a word or a phrase. Diverse.
Okay. I'll give you an easy one. Bug bounties.
Collaboration.
Yaworsk.
Awesome.
Uber.
Fun.
HackerOne.
These are horrible like responses. HackerOne. The beginning.
Live hacking events.
Live hacking events. I'll just do a phrase. Can I just say, like, it doesn't have to be afraid, or can I just say
anything,
something?
man. Anything that comes into your mind about this particular thing.
Yeah, I would just say for like live hacking events, it's a great opportunity for anyone that's being able to go to it, because whether it's you've been to a couple, you're able to see old faces again. It just gives that opportunity to be able to see people, because I don't think there's much. There's a lot of people will say, "Hey, I met you a couple times at an event. I want to go to Europe and see you," or whatnot, if they're on the other side of the world. So these events give a lot of opportunity to be able to see your old friends, being able to see what people are finding, and the things that people find. And during when you guys when there's a show and tell happening at the live events, it's just like wow.
So I would say friendship, wow, travel for live hacking event. What about triage?
Triage. Meticulous.
That's a good one. Burp.
Burp. Huh.
Favorite
Tool set.
There you go. And then last one, just because this is a Recon stream, what do you think? What pops up in your mind when someone says Recon?
Recon. As you can see, my brain's not running very well. Recon. Tools.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you made it to the end. This is the final. This is our final moment during the stream. But I want to say thank you again, man, for joining me on Sunday, and I appreciate you sharing all your knowledge and being, transparent and helping me get your message out. Like I said to you in private, you have one of my favorite stories in bug bounties and how you got started. So I appreciate you letting me showcase your story and telling it to the stream.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me onto it.
Yeah, man. I look forward to seeing you. Hopefully, when all this coronavirus shit dies down, and hopefully we get to hang out more and run into each other in more conferences and maybe do some CTFs together.
All right.
Cool, man. Thanks again. We'll talk soon. See ya.
All right. Bye.
All right. That was it. That was a fun interview. I didn't do questions just because I was being a little bit more active with questions and answering them right on the spot than anything else. But I just noticed my